Sometimes the biggest decisions in life, they're not really the ones you actively make, are they?
Right. They're more like things that just, well, happen to you.
Exactly. These unexpected currents that somehow, steer your ship somewhere totally different.
Absolutely. It's easy to look back and think, oh, it was a straight line. But often, yeah, the biggest turns came from somewhere else entirely, outside the plan.
And that idea, that's really at the heart of the deep dive we're doing today. We've been looking into this interview with a software engineer. She's based in Boston. And she takes us through her whole career journey. What's really fascinating, I think, is how much she points to these key moments as what she calls passive decisions.
Yeah, it's a great phrase. So we're pulling out the really insightful bits from her story, how she navigated different engineering fields, the real struggles she faced in university.
Right.
And yeah, those crucial passive decisions that kind of shaped where she ended up.
So our mission here really is to understand her unique path from high school back in Shanghai through university, then a master's in the U.S.
Right up to her current software job.
Yeah. And by sort of stepping into her experience, we hope you, the listener, might find some surprising connections, maybe some insights into your own journey.
Or even the paths of people you know.
Definitely. Okay, so let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, setting the scene, high school, Shanghai, class of 2006, focused on science subjects. What really struck me was her take on high school life there.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, she sort of compared it to what she thought high schools were like elsewhere. Maybe, less intense.
Right. She mentioned things like having weekends, usually finishing school around 6 p.m. It wasn't the round-the-clock pressure cooker, maybe some imagine.
Exactly. And her study habits, she just called it normal. Like not killing herself, just doing what needed to be done.
But even then, there was a bit of friction, wasn't there? Yeah, a little bit. She mentioned, clashing with teachers sometimes, them pushing her to focus on weaker subjects, or telling her to skip sleep to finish homework.
Okay, so even in that quote-unquote normal environment, the pressure could still pop up.
Definitely. It shows it was still there. So she finishes high school, doing her thing, aiming for something specific, actually.
And then, bam, the first big unexpected turn, the college entrance exam.
This is where that first passive decision really kicks in. The system back then in Shanghai, it was called 3+1, so core subjects plus one specialty.
And she chose
Biology. Specifically because her dream was marine biology. She really wanted to research animals.
Marine biology. Wow, okay. That's a long way from software engineering.
Isn't it just? But yeah, she didn't get into her first choice program. That was the pivot.
So what happened?
Well, after the exam results came out, instead of getting marine biology, she was basically assigned, the word in Chinese is tiaoji, to an engineering college.
Assigned, okay.
And importantly, it wasn't in Shanghai. It was outside the city. This was 2007. And looking back, she says very clearly that assignment was a passive decision.
Wow. And she gets there and he's kind of surprised, right? Thinking maybe she's done with all the intense math and physics.
Totally. She thought, okay, engineering, maybe it's different, but nope. Still had to tackle advanced math, physics, all that stuff.
So it wasn't the clean break she might have been expecting.
Not at all. It just shows what a curveball it was, Aiming for animals, ends up in engineering, still needing those core science skills she might have hoped to leave behind.
So, okay. She's in this engineering university she didn't choose, outside her hometown. What exactly was she studying? You said it was kind of a mix.
Yeah, her major, it was related to mechanical engineering, but it was pretty broad. It touched on E, electrical engineering,
Okay.
ME, mechanical, and also CE, computer engineering.
Right. And initially, she felt more drawn to the mechanical side.
Yeah, she did. She linked it to, like, manual skills she thought she had, being good with her hands, that kind of thing.
But the interest that eventually, became her career, computer engineering, came from a different angle, didn't it?
Exactly. It actually sparked from the electrical engineering part. She found that for her EE projects, she needed to program.
Ah, okay. Like a practical necessity.
Pretty much. She gave this example of building a little car. You could wire it all up, sure, but to make it move,
You needed code.
you needed code. And having to do that programming for the EE stuff, that was her first real taste of the CE side. And it just clicked, It started to capture her interest. It wasn't her first strength, but that's where the curiosity started to build.
Interesting how that happens. But university wasn't just about discovering programming, was it? She moved away from Shanghai.
Yeah, and that whole transition, she described it as not particularly pleasant at first.
That's putting it mildly, maybe.
Well, yeah. Moving from Shanghai, which she knew, to a totally new city, a different university vibe, different kinds of people. She found it, well, a bit overwhelming initially.
And she feels that initial adjustment, maybe feeling a bit lost, it impacted her focus. Yeah. Especially early on.
Oh, significantly. Looking back now, she really regrets how much time she poured into social stuff and clubs in those first couple of years.
Things that seemed important then, maybe.
Exactly. But now she calls them seemingly meaningless things. Harsh, maybe, but it's because they took time away from her studies.
Right, and that lack of academic focus meant her GPA wasn't great early on.
Yeah, it was lower, and she really kicked herself for it later, especially by her third year. She realized the impact.
And this is where one of her big lessons comes from, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is huge for her. She firmly believes, based on that tough experience, that, look, it's great if you can do it all, social life, clubs, and hit the books hard.
But if you have to choose.
If you have to choose, studying has to be the first priority, especially during those dedicated university years. It's such a strong point, and it comes straight from her own feeling of getting that balance wrong.
That's good. Yeah, that's a lesson a lot of people could probably relate to or learn from. Okay, so after university, another big shift happens.
Yeah.
And again, she calls this one
A passive decision. Yep. This time it was about pursuing a master's degree, and specifically going abroad to do it.
Okay. How did that come about?
She pretty much credits her mother with this one. Her mom really encouraged her, wanted her to get that international experience, that idea of gilding oneself, adding that layer of prestige.
Ah, right. So that push led her to the U.S. East Coast for grad school.
Exactly.
So we've got the assigned engineering major,
Mm-hmm.
then the parental nudge for the master's abroad. Two huge shifts. She didn't really initiate herself.
Pretty much. But once she actually got to the U.S., it does sound like she started taking a bit more active control.
Okay, how so?
Well, for one, she found she really liked the environment there, the lifestyle. And a big reason she wanted to stay was this feeling she got, that in the U.S., there was a clearer connection between putting in the effort and actually getting the desired results.
That sense of agency, maybe. That hard work pays off more directly.
Yeah, that seemed to really resonate with her. It made her want to stick around.
And her choice of what to study for her master's? That seems more active, too.
Definitely. She chose computer engineering, CE, for her master's. So while the decision to go abroad was maybe passive, the specific field was more deliberate this time.
Why CE specifically?
She noticed that at that time anyway, the U.S. East Coast, where she was, seemed to have stronger faculty and resources in software compared to hardware.
Okay. So she was looking at the landscape where the strengths were.
Exactly. She actively chose her specialization based on where the opportunities and the academic muscle seemed to be.
That makes sense. So that choice sets her firmly on the software path. What was her first job like after the master's?
Her first gig was at a small company, and she talks about that time really fondly, actually. Said the environment, the team spirit, it was really positive. Yeah, she felt like everyone was really motivated, working towards the same thing. Used the phrase, you got team, like having drive.
And the work itself was mobile development.
Yep. Straight into writing apps, programming for mobile devices. She was there for quite a while, actually, before making a change during the pandemic.
Okay, which brings us up to her current job. How are things for her now?
So now she's a software engineer, mostly working as an individual contributor. She describes her work life as relatively relaxed, around 40 hours a week, generally. Less pressure than maybe some other corners of the tech world.
That sounds pretty good. And the company culture.
Seems positive, too. She mentioned her current place really encourages learning, lets people get involved in different groups and initiatives. So a good atmosphere for growth, it sounds like.
Okay, so looking back at this whole journey, it's quite a winding road, isn't it?
It really is.
That unexpected engineering assignment, the tough university start, the master's abroad, prompted by her mom, finding her way into software. How does she feel about it all now?
It's interesting because she actually expresses this real sense of gratitude for those very passive decisions.
Really? Even though she didn't choose them?
Yeah. Getting put into engineering, that nudge to go abroad, she feels those external pushes kind of accidentally led her to the industry she's in now, and she genuinely seems to appreciate where she landed.
She even used the word lucky, I think.
She did, yeah. There's a feeling of luck playing a part. She was quite open about it, saying she didn't really do deep research into different industries, trying to find her ultimate passion early on.
Her approach was more reactive.
Pretty much. Choosing, as she put it, the closest thing that was sort of put in front of her at each stage.
So definitely not a meticulously planned career path. But she feels fortunate about the outcome.
Right. But as we talked about earlier, there's that one specific lesson from her whole experience that she feels so strongly about. The thing she wishes her younger self, and maybe everyone, would prioritize.
Ah, yes, the learning focus.
Absolutely. This seems to be the absolute core takeaway for her. Her advice is just unwavering, prioritize learning above pretty much everything else.
At any age, she thinks.
At any stage, yeah. But critically important during those dedicated study periods like high school and university.
And that comes straight from her own regret about those first couple of years at uni, right? Prioritizing the social stuff over the books.
Exactly. She sees that time spent on what she now calls those meaningless things during those really formative academic years. She sees it as a huge missed opportunity. Her message is crystal clear. If you've got the energy for everything, fantastic. Go for it.
But if not?
If not, studying and learning has to be job number one. Such a powerful lesson, forged in the fire of her own hindsight.
Her story really is this fascinating mix, isn't it? Unexpected turns, moments of struggle, these little sparks of interest catching fire, and then this really clear, hard-won lesson about focus at the end.
Totally. From being passively dropped into engineering, fighting through those university challenges, another passive move taking her overseas,
to then actively choosing her path in software and finding her place.
It just highlights that our paths, they're not always straight lines. They're not always fully in our control either. There's external stuff, maybe some luck, like she said.
Yeah, and the effect of just choosing the closest thing sometimes.
Right. But underneath it all is that really strong reflection she has on the non-negotiable priority. Just that commitment to learning, which she really feels should guide us, at every stage.
It really does make you pause and think about your own life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What were those moments for you that felt less like your choice and more like, I don't know, a current just pulling you along?
How did those passive decisions, big or small, end up shaping where you are right now?
And maybe taking her big lesson to heart. In whatever stage you're in right now, what really is the first priority? The thing you should be focusing on, above all the noise, the distractions, the seemingly meaningless things.
Yeah, definitely something to chew on, something to carry with you after listening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for exploring this journey with us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining this deep dive.